The whole estate is ours. Rachel gloated. But when they finally opened the safe, all they found was a letter. A letter that changed everything. Sarah slammed her hand on the kitchen island. The coffee mugs actually jumped. She stood by the window, holding a tray of coffee that had gone cold. It hadn't even been a week since Robert passed away. The big suburban house still smelled of funeral casseroles and stale lilies. The smell alone was enough to make Sarah sick to her stomach. "Are you even listening to me?" Rachel turned her whole body toward her. "The house. The money? Dad's truck. It's all ours. And you. Sarah, you're just staying here on borrowed time." "Rachel. The dirt is barely settled on his grave," Sarah said quietly. "Can we not do this today, then when?" Her sister-in-law smirked, crossing her legs. "When you quietly get your hands on everything, I know your type. The quiet ones are always the sneakiest." Steve sat at the dining table, spinning a spoon between his fingers. He was her husband. 10 years of marriage. And he didn't even look up. "Steve," Sarah called out. "Say something." "Well, what do you want me to say?" he mumbled. "Rachel is partly right. We need to divide everything fair and square." Partly. That single word sank into Sarah's chest like a cold stone. Right then, Eleanor appeared in the doorway. Her mother-in-law was a stern, rigid woman, wearing a black cardigan. She scanned the room, her eyes darting around as if she were inventorying the furniture. "The coffee is getting cold," Eleanor told Sarah, completely skipping the greeting. "Did you forget how to serve it hot?" Sarah didn't argue. She turned and walked back into the kitchen. Behind her back, she heard her mother-in-law drop her voice to a whisper. "Don't rush it. Rachel, we haven't opened the safe yet." The way she said it so slow, so loaded with meaning, sent a sudden chill down Sarah's spine. In the kitchen, Sarah reset the coffee maker and leaned heavily against the marble counter. Her hands were shaking. 10 years. She had lived in this house for 10 years. She was the one who gave Robert his pills on the dot. She was the one who pureed his soups. She was the one who read the local newspaper out loud when his vision started failing. And Rachel drove down from the city exactly twice a year. Thanksgiving. And his birthday. She'd bring a cheap box of chocolates and leave with anything that wasn't nailed down. The kitchen door creaked. Steve walked in, shifting his weight guiltily. "Sarah. Come on. Don't be mad. My sister is just stressed." "Stressed," Sarah repeated. "Is Steve. She didn't even give your father a proper mourning period before she started dividing up his house. He was her dad, and what am I in this house? Just the hired help." Sarah turned to face him fully. "I took care of him for a decade. Where were you when the ambulance took him to the ER? Where was Rachel?" Steve looked away. "Don't start. Now isn't the time." Then when is the time? He didn't answer. He just grabbed a bottle of water from the fridge, slammed the door, and walked out again. Sarah was left completely alone. Outside, a light drizzle began to fall. Suddenly, a phone buzzed on the kitchen island. Steve had left it behind. The screen lit up with a text message. Sarah didn't mean to look, but the words caught her eye. The contact name was simply the letter M. The message read, "Well, did you convince her the safe is the main priority? We have to get to it before the lawyer does." Sarah froze. She read it again. Her stomach dropped. Before she could process it, Steve rushed back in and snatched the phone off the counter. "Why are you snooping through my stuff?" he barked, shoving the phone into his pocket. "I wasn't snooping." It buzzed. Steve's face flushed red. "Stay out of my phone. Sarah. How many times do I have to ask you?" "Steve, who is M? What is this about?" He played dumb. "You're seeing things. Just bring the coffee and get everyone seated." He practically ran out of the room, Sarah stood there, the words echoing in her mind. The safe. Get to it before the lawyer. Someone was terrified of the estate attorney seeing what was inside that safe. From the living room, Rachel's voice rang out. Is Steve? Where's the key to the safe? Where did Dad keep it? I don't know. He hid it somewhere. Then go find it, Rachel shrieked. Why are you just sitting there? Sarah walked in with the tray. Eleanor sat at the head of the table, her hands folded in her lap. She was staring blankly at the wall. She looked way too calm for a woman who had just buried her husband. Eleanor, Sarah said, setting a mug in front of her. Shouldn't we at least honor his memory first? Her mother-in-law slowly looked up. We'll honor his memory after we divide the assets. Because you know how it goes. You mourn a man today. And tomorrow, half his estate is mysteriously signed over to a stranger. I haven't had anything signed over to me, Sarah said. Good. Let's keep it that way. Eleanor took a sip of her coffee. It's cold. Just like I said. The safe was in Robert's home office. It was a heavy, old-school steel box, built right into the wall behind a massive oak bookcase. It was painted gray, with a thick combination dial and a heavy keyhole beneath it. Rachel was already standing in front of it, aggressively jiggling the handle. It's locked. Is Steve? Seriously. Where's the key I told you? I don't know, well, somebody does. Rachel spun around and glared at Sarah. You've been snooping around here. You know where it is. Don't you? I never went into his office without permission. Sarah replied calmly. Oh. Spare me the saint act. Rachel narrowed her eyes. 10 years in this house. And you don't know where the key to the safe is, yeah. Right. Tell us where you stashed it. I didn't stash anything. Steve. Are you hearing this? Rachel threw her hands up. She's lying right to our faces. Dad's whole 401k and life savings could be in there. And she hid the key. Sarah felt her cheeks burn. Rachel. Listen to yourself. I was arranging your father's funeral while you were busy taking inventory of his furniture. What did you say? Her sister-in-law took an angry step toward her. Say that again? Girls. Enough. Eleanor's cold voice echoed from the hallway. Not in front of the dead. If the key is gone, we'll hire a locksmith. Maybe we don't need a locksmith, Rachel muttered, staring a hole right through Sarah. Maybe the key will magically appear once a certain someone stops playing games. In that heavy silence, Sarah realized the terrifying truth. These people wouldn't stop at anything. That night, Sarah couldn't sleep. She lay in bed, listening to the muffled whispers coming from the guest room. Rachel and Eleanor were plotting. She couldn't make out the words, just the tones, sometimes angry, sometimes dangerously quiet. Around 3 a.m., Sarah got up for a glass of water. In the dark hallway, she bumped right into Rachel. Rachel was stepping out of Robert's home office, with her iPhone flashlight turned on. What were you doing in there? Sarah asked. None of your business, Rachel snapped. It's my house. I can do whatever I want. It's not your house yet. It will be. Rachel gave a nasty, crooked smile. Very soon. Honestly, Sarah, you should start packing your bags now. Save yourself the embarrassment. She brushed past her and walked away. Sarah pushed the door to the office open. It was completely trashed. Desk drawers were pulled out. Papers were scattered across the rug. Books were thrown off the shelves. They had been searching for the key. Clearly, they hadn't found it. The gray safe sat there, locked, silent. Suddenly, Sarah felt a strong intuition. The answer to everything was inside that steel box. It held the reason why Eleanor was so calm. The reason why M mattered. The reason why Steve had walked on eggshells for a decade. only to betray her on day one. She bent down and picked up a framed photo from the floor. The glass was cracked. It was a picture of Robert in his army uniform, back when he was young. On the back of the frame, there was writing. The ink was faded, but Sarah could still read it. Sarah, if anything happens, remember the bottom shelf. Her heart skipped a beat. What bottom shelf? The next morning, the estate attorney arrived. His name was Arthur Sterling. He was an older, thin man in a sharp gray suit, carrying a worn leather briefcase. Rachel met him at the front door with a blinding smile. She acted like they were old friends. Come in. Come in, we've been waiting for you. I assume you're eager to discuss the estate, Arthur said, wiping his shoes on the mat. The last will and testament is a serious matter. Wait. There's a will. Rachel's smile vanished. Arthur looked at her over his glasses. That is precisely what we are going to discuss. They all gathered in the living room. Arthur opened his briefcase and laid out his documents. He put on his reading glasses. Let's go over the facts. There are 3 primary heirs. The surviving spouse, Eleanor Davis. The son, Steve. And the daughter, Rachel. And her. Rachel pointed a sharp finger at Sarah. The daughter-in-law. She gets nothing. Right. A daughter-in-law is not an automatic heir, the lawyer explained. Unless, of course, she is specifically named in the will. There is no will, Rachel blurted out. Dad didn't leave one. We would know. Arthur slowly took off his glasses. Well, here is the situation. Robert Davis did draft a will. 6 months ago. Right in my office. The room went dead silent. You could hear the kitchen faucet dripping from 2 rooms away. What kind of will? Eleanor choked out. For the first time all week. Her icy composure cracked. A valid one, Arthur replied. But we have a slight problem. The original copy, which was kept at my law firm, went missing 2 weeks ago. Missing? Rachel leaned forward. A little too quickly. So if it's gone, it doesn't count. Right. The lawyer gave her a very long, very observant look. Why does that make you so happy? Rachel, it doesn't make me happy. She instantly slumped back into the sofa. I'm just asking. Just asking, Arthur repeated dryly. Well, my firm is small. We don't get random walk-ins. But exactly 2 weeks before Robert passed away, a woman came into the office and claimed to be a relative and asked to see some estate documents. My new paralegal made a rookie mistake and let her into the file room. He paused, letting his gaze sweep across the room. And just like that, the firm's copy vanished. But, Arthur continued, a will is always drafted in duplicate. Robert took the second copy home. He told me, I'm going to put this where no greedy hands will ever find it. Zara froze. The safe. The bottom shelf. So, where is this second copy? Eleanor's voice was steady again. But she hid her shaking hands under the table. That, Arthur said, closing his folder, is the million-dollar question. I was hoping you could tell me. Rachel and Eleanor exchanged a rapid, panicked look. It lasted only a split second. But Sarah caught it. As soon as the lawyer left, Rachel completely lost her mind. The safe. We need it open right now, Steve. Call the locksmith. I am not waiting another second, Rachel. Calm down. Steve rubbed his temples. Why are you rushing this? Why am I rushing? She grabbed his shirt sleeve. There is a will in there, do you get it? What if he left the house to her? She jabbed a finger toward Sarah. To her. Just for making him soup. Stop pointing at me. Sarah warned. You shut your mouth, Rachel screamed. You're nothing but a glorified nurse. You thought you could butter up an old man and steal his house. That is not going to happen. I never thought that. You all say that. Suddenly, Rachel went eerily calm. It was much scarier than her screaming. You know what? Sarah, let's do this the easy way. You pack your bags. You leave quietly. And we forget you exist. But if you try to take a single dime of this inheritance, I will make you regret the day you met my brother. Eleanor stood by the wall, nodding in agreement. Her lips were pressed in a thin line. Listen to my daughter, Eleanor said. She's right. You have no place here anymore. Steve will find himself a new wife. Someone younger. Steve flinched. Mom, why would you say that? Why not? Eleanor shrugged coldly. 10 years and no kids. What use is she to this family? There it was. Said right to her face. Sarah felt something snap inside her. But it wasn't sadness. It was pure, burning anger. What use am I? Sarah said softly. Fine. Open the safe. I really want to see the looks on your faces when you do. For the first time in days. Rachel looked at her with genuine fear. But the fear didn't last long. By noon, Rachel had a new scheme. A woman pulled into the driveway. She was a blonde woman in a sharp business suit, carrying an iPad. Rachel welcomed her like an old friend. Come on in, this is the property. Let me give you the grand tour. Who is this? Sarah asked. The realtor. Rachel tossed over her shoulder. We need to appraise the house. We're selling it. We have to divide the cash somehow. What realtor? The house isn't even yours yet, it will be. Rachel led the blonde woman through the rooms. Here's the main living area. Great square footage. That's the master bath. And down the hall. Well, my brother's wife is staying in that room for now. But she'll be out by the end of the week. The realtor nodded, tapping on her iPad and taking photos. Sarah followed them, her face burning with humiliation. A complete stranger was walking through Robert's home, calculating how much cash it would bring, and Rachel was parading around like the queen of the castle. Tear down those drapes. Throw that chair in the dumpster. The wallpaper is a bit dated. The realtor noted. Is the furniture staying? Keep whatever looks good for staging. Throw the rest in the trash. Rachel waved her hand dismissively. It's mostly just the old man's junk. It's not junk. Sarah snapped, unable to hold back. Those were his personal belongings. They were his. Now they're garbage. Rachel didn't even look at her. She leaned into the realtor and whispered loudly. Don't mind her. She used to be the hired help. She's getting evicted soon. Hired help. That was all she ever was to them. That evening, after the realtor left, chaos erupted. It's gone. Eleanor's voice echoed through the entire house. My ring. The gold one with the ruby. It was right in my jewelry box. Sarah rushed out of her room. Her mother-in-law was standing in the master bedroom, furiously dumping out a wooden jewelry box onto the bed. I know I left it here, and now it's gone. Well. Rachel stepped out from the hallway, crossing her arms. Who's been roaming around the house all day? Who is the one desperately in need of cash right now? What are you implying? Sarah stopped in the doorway. I'm not implying anything. Rachel stared her down. I'm just saying. My mom's jewelry goes missing on the exact same day. You're wandering around doing nothing. Just a coincidence I never even stepped foot in your room. Then who did Steve me? Rachel scoffed. You're the only outsider here. Sarah, you're the only one with a motive to steal. How dare you? Sarah's voice shook. Let's just check. Eleanor said smoothly. Too smoothly. Let's search your bedroom. Let's look in your bags. If you didn't take it, you have nothing to hide. It was a trap. Sarah saw it instantly. But if she refused, she'd look guilty. Fine. She stepped aside and gestured to her door. Be my guest. Tear the place apart. They marched into her bedroom. Rachel didn't even check the closet. She went straight for the heavy wooden dresser. She ripped open the third drawer down and let out a dramatic gasp. Oh my God, what is this, there? Shoved underneath Sarah's folded sweaters was the gold ring with the red ruby. Sarah stared at the ring. Her throat closed up. She couldn't speak. She knew for a fact it wasn't there this morning. Busted. Rachel snatched the ring and held it up like a trophy. Thief? Hey, Steve. Get in here, your precious wife is stealing from our mother. Steve jogged into the room, looking panicked. What's going on now? Look, Rachel shoved the ring in his face. It was buried in her dresser. Under her clothes. So much for playing the innocent victim. Steve turned to Sarah. He looked completely lost. Sarah. Is this true, Steve? Sarah spoke very slowly, trying to keep her voice from trembling. I have never seen that ring up close in my life. Someone planted it. Oh. Please. Rachel rolled her eyes. Think about it. Steve. Sarah continued. If I was going to steal something, would I hide it in my own bedroom, in my own dresser, right under my clothes where a 5-year-old could find it in 10 seconds? Do you honestly think I am that stupid? Steve hesitated. Well, but look at your sister. Sarah pointed at Rachel. Notice how she didn't check the closet, she didn't check my luggage. She made a beeline straight for the exact drawer where it was hidden. Almost like she already knew it was there. Rachel flinched. I just guessed. You guessed. Sarah nodded slowly. You guessed the third drawer out of 5. Buried specifically under the sweaters. Wow. You should buy a lottery ticket. Rachel. Eleanor and Rachel exchanged a quick, nervous glance. Steve looked from his sister to his wife. His brow furrowed. For the first time in days, there was a flicker of doubt in his eyes. Not doubt in Sarah. Doubt in his own family. Well, we found it. So that's that. Eleanor muttered, quickly snatching the ring back. No harm done. At least it's returned. She practically dragged Rachel out of the room. They retreated far too fast. They finally agreed. The locksmith would come first thing in the morning. By midnight, the house went quiet. Steve locked himself in the guest bedroom. Eleanor went to sleep. Rachel drove off to stay with a friend, claiming the house gave her bad vibes. Sarah was left alone. She walked into the home office and turned on the small desk lamp. Remember the bottom shelf? The words kept spinning in her head. What bottom shelf? The safe was locked tight. She scanned the room again. The desk. The leather chair where Robert used to sit, and then her eyes landed on the massive, floor-to-ceiling oak bookcase. The bottom shelf of the bookcase. Sarah dropped to her knees. She moved a heavy stack of vintage National Geographic magazines. Behind them was the wooden back panel of the bookcase. She pressed her fingers against the wood. It moved. She slid the panel to the side. Behind it, hidden in a dusty recess in the wall, was a flat metal lockbox. Her hands shook as she pulled it out. It had a tiny padlock. Taped to the top of the box was a small brass key on a piece of heavy thread. She turned the key. The lock popped open. Inside, there were 2 envelopes. One was a thick, legal-sized yellow envelope. Written across it in Robert's neat handwriting were the words, "To be opened only in front of everyone. Only after the safe is opened." D. Underneath it was a smaller, standard white envelope. It simply said, Sarah. Read this first. Sarah sat right there on the rug. Her heart was beating so hard it actually hurt. She tore open her letter. My dearest Sarah, if you are reading this, It means I'm gone. And the vultures are circling the house, knowing my daughter and my wife. I am absolutely certain how they are behaving. I am so sorry for dragging you into this mess. I saw everything. Sarah. I saw how Rachel only visited when she needed cash. I saw how Eleanor resented me, simply because I treated you like an actual human being. And I saw how Steve just floated along, agreeing with whoever yelled the loudest. I know they are obsessed with the safe. I know they'll tear the house apart to crack it. Let them. There's a surprise waiting for them inside. But the real truth is what you are holding in your hands right now. Do not give the yellow envelope to anyone until the whole family is in the room and that safe is drilled open. Let them celebrate for a minute. Then, let them read it. Stay strong. Kiddo, you are much tougher than you think you are. Love. Bobs. Sarah pressed the letter to her chest. Hot tears streamed down her face. But for the first time all week, they weren't tears of sadness or humiliation. They were tears of relief. She carefully placed both envelopes back into the lockbox, slid it behind the panel, and put the magazines back. Tomorrow, everything would end. Suddenly, a floorboard creaked in the hallway. Sarah froze. A shadow crept under the office door. Someone was standing right outside. Listening. Sarah quietly reached up and clicked off the desk lamp. The room went pitch black. The shadow lingered for another few seconds, then slowly crept away. She heard the faint click of Eleanor's bedroom door closing. Her mother-in-law had been spying on her. Sarah waited 10 full minutes before slipping back to her room. Her mind raced. Did Eleanor hear the papers rustling? Did she see the hidden compartment? The next morning, the sun barely cracked the horizon when Rachel burst through the front door. She didn't even wipe her shoes. "Where's the locksmith?" she demanded. Steve stumbled out of the bedroom, rubbing his eyes. "I booked him for 9 a.m. Nine a.m. Rachel slammed her Prada bag onto the kitchen island. "I am losing my mind here. And he's coming at 9. She paced around the living room, then stopped directly in front of Sarah. "Why do you look so smug this morning?" Rachel sneered. "What are you so happy about?" "Nothing," Sarah replied evenly, sipping her coffee. "Would you like a cup? Drop the innocent housewife act?" Rachel narrowed her eyes. "I see right through you. You know something, Steve." "She knows something. What could she possibly know?" Steve sighed. Exhausted. "We'll see." Rachel leaned in until she was inches from Sarah's face. "Let me make this crystal clear. If that safe has a single dime with your name on it, I will drag you through court until you are bankrupt. You'll be thrown out of this house wearing nothing but the sweater on your back." Understood. Sarah didn't blink. She held Rachel's haza. "We'll see." Her absolute calmness made Rachel flinch. She stepped back, suddenly unsure of herself. Eleanor finally came down for breakfast. She looked awful. She was pale, with dark circles under her eyes. She pushed her plate away. "Couldn't sleep?" Mom, Steve asked. "No." Eleanor shot a sharp glare at Sarah. Someone was making noise, prowling around the house in the middle of the night. "Nobody was prowling," Sarah said casually. "Maybe you were just hearing things." "I don't hear things." Eleanor tightened her jaw. "Or maybe someone was rummaging through rooms where they don't belong." "Are you talking about yourself?" Sarah shot back. "Because I definitely heard you standing outside the office door at 3 a.m. Eleanor gasped, clutching her pearls. "How dare you? This is my house. I will stand wherever I please." "Exactly." Sarah nodded. "Standing outside a closed door, eavesdropping. Why is that?" "Eleanor, enough." Rachel slammed her palm on the table. "The locksmith will be here any minute. Stop bickering." She turned to her mother and dropped her voice. Mom? What is she talking about? What happened last night? Eleanor didn't answer. She just glared at Sarah, as if trying to drill a hole through her skull. She suspected something, but she hadn't seen enough to prove it. Otherwise, she would have torn the office apart. The doorbell rang. Locksmith, Rachel shrieked, practically sprinting to the door. Finally, the locksmith was a burly guy named Gary. He wore a blue work shirt and carried a massive toolbox. He walked into the office, inspected the heavy steel safe, and whistled. Old German make. Tough steel. I am going to have to drill the lock cylinder out. Might take an hour. Maybe an hour and a half. Drill it. Break it. Do whatever you have to do. I don't care. Rachel talked a mile a minute. Just get it open. Gary set up his heavy-duty drill. The loud, high-pitched screech of metal grinding against metal filled the room. The smell of burning steel dust hung in the air. Rachel hovered over him like a hawk. Eleanor stood stiffly in the doorway, her arms crossed. Steve nervously shifted his weight by the window. Sarah simply sat down in Robert's heavy leather desk chair. She folded her hands in her lap. Calm. Completely unbothered. Rachel kept shooting her venomous looks. Why are you sitting there like the Queen of England? Should I be standing in the flying metal shavings? Sarah replied smoothly. 20 minutes passed. Then 40. Gary wiped the sweat from his forehead. All right. We're through. It's opening. Rachel lunged forward. Her eyes were practically glowing with greed. Eleanor took a hesitant step into the room. Open it. Rachel breathed heavily. Open it right now. Gary grabbed the heavy steel handle and pulled. With a loud groan, the thick door swung open. Everyone stared inside. The safe was almost completely empty. There were no stacks of cash, no gold bars, no bearer bonds or stock certificates that Rachel had been dreaming about. Sitting alone on the metal shelf was a small stack of vintage letters tied with a ribbon, a velvet box containing Robert's military medals, and one single, plain white envelope. It was sealed. Rachel snatched it so hard she nearly ripped the paper. This is it. The will. She shook the envelope in the air. Now we are going to see who gets what. Hold on. Eleanor stepped forward, holding out her hand. Give it to me. I'm his wife. I read it first. Why does it matter who reads it? Rachel ignored her and ripped the top off. I'm opening it. Wait. Where's the money? Steve asked, sounding deeply confused. There has to be cash. Dad saved his whole life. Forget the cash right now, Rachel snapped. This is the deed to the estate. She pulled out a folded piece of paper, flattened it out, and started reading the first line. Suddenly, all the color drained from her face. Her jaw went slack. What does it say? Eleanor leaned over her daughter's shoulder. Read it out loud. Rachel swallowed hard. Her voice shook. Dear family, if you are reading this, it means you managed to crack open my safe before my grave was even fully covered. The room went dead silent. The only sound was Gary the locksmith slowly packing up his tools, pretending he was invisible. Rachel kept reading. Her voice cracked with every word. I spent a long time trying to decide what to leave you in this safe. If I left money, you'd blow it in a week and sue each other over the rest. The house, I know you're already tearing each other's throats out for it. So, I decided to leave you something much more valuable. The truth. What truth? Eleanor frowned deeply. Give me that. She snatched the paper from Rachel's trembling hands and continued reading aloud. Eleanor, 40 years of marriage, and for the last 5 years, you looked at me like I was nothing but a burden. I heard you tell Rachel on the phone that you couldn't wait for it to be over. Well, I'm not mad. But don't be mad at what happens next either. Eleanor turned ghost pale. The paper trembled violently in her hands. Rachel. My sweet daughter. You came down to visit twice a year. And you never left without a handout. The last time you were here, you took my debit card and withdrew $10,000 from my checking account. You thought my mind was going and I wouldn't notice. I noticed. I also noticed when you impersonated a family member to steal the estate files from my lawyer's office. Rachel stumbled backward, bumping into the wall. That's a lie. He was losing his mind. He made it all up. Keep reading, Sarah said, her voice cutting through the panic. She didn't move from the leather chair. You started it. Finish it. Eleanor shot her a look of pure hatred. But she didn't drop the paper. She couldn't stop now. And now for the important part. Eleanor read, her voice barely a whisper. The house. The land. The 401k. And all the bank accounts that you didn't find in this safe, because I moved them months ago. I am not leaving to any of you. Rachel let out a pathetic sound. It was half sob, half gasp. I am leaving my entire estate to the only person who stayed by my side for a decade. The woman who fed me when my hands shook too much to hold a spoon. The woman who read to me when I went blind. I leave absolutely everything to Sarah. The silence shattered. No, Rachel screamed at the top of her lungs. It's fake. This is a forgery, Steve. Tell them it's fake. Where is the real will? Eleanor crumpled the paper in her fist. This is just a letter. A letter means nothing in probate court. Where is the notarized legal document? Actually. Here it is. A confident, familiar voice echoed from the hallway. Everyone whipped around. Standing in the doorway of the office was Arthur Sterling, the estate attorney. He was holding his worn leather briefcase. Nobody had even heard him come inside. Sarah had unlocked the back patio door for him 5 minutes before the locksmith finished. They had arranged the whole thing over the phone last night. Good morning, everyone, Arthur said smoothly, adjusting his glasses. I believe my timing is impeccable. Where did you come from? Rachel backed away, looking terrified. Who let you in? I did, Sarah said calmly, finally standing up from Robert's chair. Last night, I found exactly what I was looking for. So I called Arthur. She walked over to the oak bookcase, pushed the heavy magazines aside, and slid the wooden panel open. She pulled out the metal lockbox, unlocked it with the tiny key, and pulled out the thick yellow envelope. She held it up so everyone could see the handwriting. To be opened only in front of everyone. Only after the safe is opened. Sarah read the words loud and clear. The safe is open. Everyone is here. I'm opening it. Don't you dare, Rachel lunged at her. Give me that. Steve suddenly moved. He grabbed his sister by the arm and yanked her back. Stop it. Rachel, let her open it. Whose side are you on? Rachel shrieked, struggling against him. I just want to know the truth. Steve yelled back. For the first time in 10 years, he sounded like a man willing to stand up for something. Sarah tore the heavy seal off the yellow envelope. Inside was a thick stack of high-quality legal paper, stamped with official state seals and signatures. She handed it directly to the lawyer. Arthur, is this what I think it is? Arthur took the document. He scanned the first page, checked the signatures, and gave a firm nod. This is it. The second original copy of the last will and testament, the exact copy Robert Davis took home for safekeeping. He looked up, locking eyes with Eleanor. It is fully notarized, legally binding, and ironclad. The house, the property, and all financial assets are transferred entirely to Sarah Davis. Rachel collapsed into a desk chair as if someone had cut her strings. This is illegal, Eleanor gasped, clutching her chest. I am his legal wife. I am entitled to the spousal share. The law demands it. That is correct. Arthur agreed calmly. You will receive your exact statutory minimum percentage under state law. Eleanor. Nothing more. And Steve will receive a nominal token amount. But the bulk of the estate goes to Sarah. And let me assure you, contesting this will in court will be virtually impossible. Arthur paused, letting the weight of his words sink in. Especially considering the incident with the stolen file from my office. He looked directly at Rachel. You see, I filed a formal police report for the theft of those legal documents. It's a felony, and my paralegal is more than willing to identify the woman who tricked her. Rachel pressed herself flat against the chair. She looked like she wanted to melt into the floor. Identify. Me? She whispered in absolute horror. Were you the woman? Rachel, Arthur asked with a polite, deadly smile. I never actually mentioned your name. Rachel opened her mouth. She closed it. She realized she had just confessed in front of a lawyer. I just wanted to look at it. She stammered, tears ruining her makeup. I didn't steal it, Steve, you went to the law firm. Steve stared at his sister, disgusted. Behind everyone's back, you stole a legal document. I was doing it for us, she screamed back. For the family. Because that crazy old man left everything to some random woman. That crazy old man was our father, Steve yelled. Don't talk about him like that. Something in the room permanently broke. Steve turned slowly to his mother. And you? Did you know about this? Mom, did you know she stole the will? Eleanor refused to look at him. She just pressed her lips together. She knew. Sarah answered for her. Last night, she was standing outside this door at 3 a.m. trying to see if I found the hidden copy. Because the two of them planned this from the start, kick me out before I realized what's going on. And rush the estate through probate before Arthur realizes the second copy exists. Sarah looked right at Eleanor. I saw the text message on Steve's phone yesterday. The safe is the main priority. We have to get to it before the lawyer. You sent that? Eleanor. From the contact M. Mom. Steve looked like he had been punched in the gut. He slowly turned to his mother. Mom. Is that true? You texted me that. You used me. Steve's voice cracked. You guys used me. You wanted to throw my wife out on the street. And you made me an accessory to a felony. Eleanor lifted her chin defensively. What was I supposed to do? Sit back and watch our family wealth go to the maid. I'm your mother. I was protecting your future, protecting me. Steve grabbed his own hair in disbelief. You made me look like a thief. I thought we were just splitting the house. I didn't know you were committing crimes. He looked at Sarah. Utterly broken. Sarah. How do I even fix this? That's for you to figure out. Is Steve? Sarah said, her voice ice cold. On the very first day, you looked at me and said, Rachel is partly right. Do you remember that? When your family stopped treating me like a human being, you couldn't find a single word to defend me. Rachel suddenly jumped up from her chair. Her face was bright red, tears streaming down her cheeks. Keep the damn house, she screamed. Choke on it, you're all crazy. Dad lost his mind. My brother is a weak coward. And you. She pointed a trembling finger at Sarah. You manipulated a dying man and robbed this family blind. I robbed the family, Sarah laughed a dry, bitter laugh. You stole $10,000 from a dying man's debit card. You committed felony theft at a law firm. You didn't even let the dirt settle on his grave before you brought a realtor in here. I never asked for a single penny. Robert gave it to me himself. You know why? Because when he was dying, I was holding his hand. You were holding his wallet. Go to hell, Rachel shrieked. Rachel, I would highly advise you to lower your voice. Arthur interrupted. slipping the will back into his briefcase. The police report regarding my stolen files is sitting on a detective's desk right now. We have a witness. I suggest you spend less time insulting my client and more time figuring out how you're going to explain the grand theft from your father's bank account. Because that is wire fraud. And that is a federal issue. Rachel froze. The reality of federal prison finally crashed down on her. You're trying to send me to jail, she whispered. I'm not doing anything. Arthur shrugged nonchalantly. I am simply executing the last will and testament of my late client. The consequences of your own actions are entirely your problem. Eleanor heavily sank into the chair next to her daughter. Her perfect posture was gone. Her icy arrogance had melted away. She just looked like a tired, broken old woman who had gambled everything and lost. Is Steve? She called out weakly. Son. Please. You have to help us. Steve stood by the window. He didn't even turn around to look at her. What am I supposed to do? Mom, you made me look like a criminal in front of my own wife. In front of an attorney. I trusted you. I thought we were family. We are family, Eleanor cried. No. Steve shook his head slowly. Family doesn't stab you in the back. Family is what Sarah did for Dad every single day. While you guys brought him a box of cheap chocolates once a year, he finally turned to face Sarah. His eyes were filled with a deep, crushing shame. A shame she had never seen in him before. Sarah. I don't know what to do. I'm so sorry. I let them manipulate me. I should have stood up for you from the very beginning. You should have. Sarah agreed softly. But you didn't. She didn't yell. She didn't gloat. She just looked at him with profound exhaustion. And somehow, her quiet disappointment hurt him much worse than if she had screamed in his face. Arthur snapped his briefcase shut. Well, that concludes the reading. Sarah, keep these documents safe. We will begin the legal transfer of the deed next week. He gave her a respectful nod. Robert knew exactly what he was doing. He chose well. They packed their bags that very afternoon. Rachel violently shoved her expensive clothes into her suitcase, muttering curses under her breath. At the front door, she turned around for one last shot. You think you won, she hissed. Her eyes, bloodshot. You get the house. But you're going to be miserable. You're going to end up completely alone in these four walls. Maybe I will be alone. Sarah replied calmly. But at least I'll be in my own house, and I won't have to deal with people like you ever again. Rachel let out an angry scoff, stormed out, and slammed the heavy oak door so hard the glass panes rattled. Eleanor lingered in the foyer. She spent a long time buttoning her coat, refusing to make eye contact. Finally, she looked up. I really thought you were the outsider in this house, Eleanor said quietly. But it turns out, we were the outsiders all along. She didn't apologize. Her pride wouldn't let her. But even admitting that much clearly took everything she had. The old woman walked out. Her shoulders slumped and didn't look back. Steve was the last one left standing in the doorway. He shifted awkwardly, holding his duffel bag. I can stay, he offered, his voice cracking. We're still married. Sarah, I get it now. I see what they are. I can fix this. Sarah looked at him for a long, quiet moment. You know, Steve, when your sister told me to pack my bags and get out, you just sat there. You spun your spoon and said she was right. When your mother tried to frame me for stealing jewelry, you didn't worry about my innocence. You worried about how it made you look. She stepped forward and gently but firmly held the front door open for him. Go to a hotel. Steve, go think about everything. But from now on, you're going to have to do the thinking for yourself. Because I am done doing it for you. Steve swallowed hard, nodded in defeat, and walked out into the rain. At last, the house fell silent. Sarah walked slowly through the empty, quiet rooms. She stepped into the home office and sat down in Robert's heavy leather chair. On the desk sat the two envelopes, the one meant for the family, and the one meant only for her. She picked up her letter and read the final lines one more time. Stay strong, kiddo. You are much tougher than you think you are. Outside the window, the rain finally stopped. A narrow beam of sunlight broke through the heavy gray clouds. It shone through the glass, landing perfectly on the old oak desk and lighting up the cracked photograph of the young soldier. Robert Davis looked back at her in his army uniform, a faint, proud smile on his face. Thanks, Bobs, Sarah whispered into the quiet room. I've got this. And for the first time in 10 long years, she finally felt at home.